The kiss landed hard under blinding lights. My secret life with him was over in an instant. The roar of the crowd hit me like a wave, cameras flashing so fast they blurred into one endless strobe. I pulled back from Marcus, my lips still tingling, his hands still tight around my wrist, as if he could anchor us both to the stage. Security rushed forward, but the damage was already done. Whispers turned to shouts. Phones held high, recording every second of what should have stayed hidden. I was Alex Rivera, 26, the breakout star of Echoes of Us. And in one reckless moment, I had just outed the relationship that had quietly rewritten my entire world. Marcus Hale, the director who had pulled me from bit parts into this lead role, stood frozen beside me. At 48, he still carried the quiet authority that made every set obey him without a word. His silver-streaked hair caught the spotlights, his jaw tight with the same calm he used when budgets ran over or actors melted down. But tonight his eyes held something new. Fear, not for himself, but for me. I could feel it in the way his thumb brushed once across my knuckles before the handlers yanked us apart. Backstage was chaos. Publicists screamed into phones. The studio head demanded an emergency meeting, and somewhere in the wings a junior assistant was already trending the clip with the caption, "Alex Marcus Kiss." I sank onto a folding chair, heart hammering so loud it drowned out the voices. How had we reached this point? 6 months earlier, I had walked onto a closed set in downtown Los Angeles believing this was just another job. Marcus had been nothing like the rumors. He didn't yell. He listened. During the first table read, he had corrected my delivery with a single quiet question. "What are you afraid of losing if you let him feel everything?" I answered honestly that day, and something shifted between us. Late-night script revisions turned into shared coffees, then drives along the Pacific Coast Highway where the city lights glittered like distant stars. He never pushed. He waited until I was ready to admit the truth I had buried since high school in suburban Ohio. My parents' proud, conservative household where different was never discussed. The first time we kissed, it was in his trailer after a brutal 14-hour day. Rain hammered the roof, and Marcus simply said, "I've fallen for you, Alex. But only if you want this too." I wanted it more than air. We kept it secret because the industry still whispered about age gaps, about power imbalances, about careers that vanished overnight. I told myself it was protection. In truth, it was terror. Now the world knew. My phone buzzed nonstop, texts from my mother in Ohio asking if the clip was real, from my agent demanding damage control, from strangers calling me everything from hero to disgrace. Marcus appeared in the doorway, coat slung over one arm, face pale under the fluorescent lights. "They want us in the green room. Together." His voice was steady, but I heard the crack beneath it. We walked in shoulder to shoulder, the air thick with the scent of stale coffee and panic. The studio executive, a woman I had only met once at auditions, slid a tablet across the table. The headline screamed, "Rising Stars On-Stage Kiss with Director 22 Years, His Senior Rocks Hollywood." Comments flooded in, some supportive, most vicious. I scrolled until Marcus gently took the device away. "We face it head-on, or we let it bury us. Your call, Alex." That night, I chose the truth. But truth, I was about to learn, came with a price no one had warned me about. Morning broke over Los Angeles with the cruelty of perfect sunshine. I woke in Marcus's hillside home, the same place we had spent quiet weekends pretending the outside world didn't exist. His arm was still draped across my waist, but the peace was gone. My phone showed 300 new notifications. My mother had left a voicemail I couldn't bring myself to play. My father had texted one line, "Call us." Now, Marcus made coffee without speaking, the way he always did, 2 sugars for me, black for him. We sat on the deck overlooking the canyon. The city spread below like a glittering trap. "The studio wants a joint statement by noon," he said. "They're spinning it as method acting gone too far." I laughed bitterly. Method acting didn't explain the way I had melted into him on stage, the way my hand had found the back of his neck like it belonged there. I drove to my own apartment in Silver Lake to change clothes, but the street was already lined with paparazzi. A woman shouted, "Alex, is he your sugar daddy?" Another asked if my parents knew I was gay. I locked the door, slid to the floor, and cried for the first time since the kiss. The boy who had hidden in high school theater clubs, who had dated girls to keep the peace at Thanksgiving dinners, was suddenly naked in front of millions. Marcus arrived an hour later, slipping in through the back alley like a spy. He didn't offer empty comfort. Instead, he sat beside me and said, "I've been here before. Different decade, same headlines. They tried to cancel me in 2012 after a relationship with an actor on my first big film. I survived by refusing to apologize for who I loved." His honesty steadied me. We drafted the statement together, simple, dignified, no excuses. Alex Rivera and Marcus Hale are in a committed relationship. We ask for privacy as we navigate this public moment. The release hit at noon. Social media split in half. Some called it brave. Others called it predatory. My agent warned that 3 sponsors had already dropped me. The film's distributor threatened to delay the wide release unless we toned down the narrative. Marcus's ex-partner from 10 years ago, a producer named Jordan, suddenly resurfaced on every talk show hinting at patterns of behavior with younger actors. The betrayal stung deeper than the cameras. That evening, we attended a small dinner at the producer's house. Damage control disguised as camaraderie. I sat beside Marcus, his hand resting lightly on my knee under the table, and for the first time felt the weight of what I had chosen. My mother called midway through dessert. I stepped outside to answer. Her voice trembled. "We love you, Alex, but this we need time." The line went dead before I could reply. Back inside, Marcus caught my eye across the room and smiled a small, private smile that had started everything. In that moment, I understood the real scandal wasn't the kiss. It was the fact that I no longer wanted to hide. Filming had wrapped months earlier, but the press tour became its own kind of set. Every interview began with the same question. How long has this been going on? I learned to answer without flinching. Marcus sat beside me, calm as ever, occasionally squeezing my hand when the room grew too hostile. We flew to New York for the East Coast premiere. The theater was packed, but the energy felt different, curious rather than celebratory. During a panel, a journalist asked Marcus about the age gap. He leaned forward, voice steady. "Love doesn't arrive with a birth certificate. It arrives with trust, respect, and the courage to show up every day." The audience applauded. I felt something loosen inside my chest. That night, in our hotel room overlooking Central Park, Marcus told me about his own coming out in the 90s, the friends who vanished, the jobs that dried up. "I promised myself I would never ask anyone to live smaller than they were," he said. "I broke that promise once. I won't break it with you." The next morning brought the first real blow. Jordan released an old video, grainy footage of Marcus and a different young actor laughing intimately on a set 10 years earlier. The internet exploded again. "Serial predator," the headlines read. My parents called together this time, my father's voice tight with disappointment. "We raised you better than this circus." I hung up shaking. Marcus found me on the balcony, wrapped his arms around me from behind, and simply held on. No words, just presence. I started therapy the following week, sessions I kept secret, even from him at first. The counselor helped me name the fear I had carried since adolescence. The fear that loving a man meant losing my family, my career, my future. Marcus never asked what we talked about. He simply made sure dinner was waiting when I came home drained. We returned to Los Angeles for the official wide release. The theater in Westwood was mobbed. Fans chanted our names. Inside, the film played to a standing ovation. On screen, my character and his co-star portrayed a love that mirrored ours in every careful glance and unspoken touch. When the lights came up, Marcus took my hand publicly for the first time since the scandal began. The applause was deafening. But backstage, my agent delivered the news. 2 major streaming platforms had pulled their offers for my next project. "They're waiting to see how this settles," she said. That night, we drove up the coast to a quiet beach house Marcus owned. The ocean roared in the darkness while we sat on the sand. "I'm costing you everything," I whispered. He turned my face toward his. "You're giving me everything I never thought I'd keep." The following weeks blurred into a strange new normal. Marcus's latest script, his most personal yet, landed on my kitchen counter one morning. "Read it," he said. It's for you if you want it. The story was about a young man and an older mentor navigating love in the shadow of public judgment. I cried reading the final page. We began pre-production quietly. Meetings held in his home office. No press allowed. My parents flew out unannounced. I met them at a cafe near the airport. Marcus waiting in the car because I asked him to. My mother hugged me first, then my father, stiff but present. We watched the film. Dad said, "You were good. Really good." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a door cracked open. We talked for 2 hours. They still struggled with the age difference, still worried about the spotlight, but they were trying. When I returned to the car, Marcus didn't ask details. He simply drove us home and made my favorite pasta. Jordan's campaign continued. A tabloid ran a story claiming Marcus had used his position to coerce me. I wanted to fight back publicly, but Marcus advised restraint. Let the work speak. We finished the new script revisions in 3 weeks. Casting began. I insisted on reading with every actor myself, remembering how Marcus had once done the same for me. Then came the twist no one saw coming. A former crew member from our original film leaked a private video, not of us, but of Jordan himself pressuring a young production assistant years earlier. The footage went viral overnight. The narrative flipped. Suddenly, the headlines shifted from Predator director to Vengeful Ex tries to destroy couple. Marcus stayed silent through the storm, but I saw the relief in his eyes. We attended a charity gala together the following weekend. Photographers still shouted questions, but the tone had changed. A young fan approached me in the hallway, voice shaking. "You made me brave enough to tell my parents." I hugged her. Marcus watched from a distance, smiling the way he did when a scene finally worked. Principal photography on the new film began in the desert outside Palm Springs. The heat was brutal, but the set felt like coming home. Marcus directed with the same quiet precision, yet now he consulted me on every emotional beat. "This is our story too," he said one night under sky thick with stars. "Tell me where it hurts." Halfway through production, my father had a mild heart scare back in Ohio. I flew home alone. Marcus offered to come, but I needed to face them without the shield of his presence. My mother met me at the hospital. Dad looked smaller in the bed, but his eyes were clear. "That director of yours," he said gruffly. "He called every day to check on you. Didn't tell me until today." I laughed through sudden tears. Marcus had never mentioned the calls. I returned to set lighter. The final weeks of filming flew by. In the last scene, my character had to choose between safety and love. I delivered the lines looking straight at Marcus behind the camera. When the director yelled, "Cut!" the entire crew erupted in applause. Marcus walked over, pulled me into a hug that lasted longer than professional, and whispered, "You just finished the best work of your life." Post-production was a whirlwind. We screened the rough cut for a small audience of friends and family. My parents attended via video link. At the end, my mother wiped her eyes and said, "I get it now." It wasn't perfect acceptance, but it was enough. The studio that had once wavered offered us a distribution deal bigger than the first film. Marcus turned to me in the meeting and said, "Your name goes first this time." I refused. We built this together. The compromise was a joint credit that made headlines again, but this time the headlines celebrated. The new film premiered 6 months later at the same theater where everything had begun. This time the red carpet felt different. No panic, no hiding. Marcus and I walked hand in hand, answering questions with the ease of people who had already survived the worst. When the lights dimmed and the story unfolded on screen, I felt every scar and every triumph woven into the frames. At the after-party, a journalist asked the inevitable question, "Any regrets?" I looked at Marcus, then back at the camera. Only that it took a scandal to teach me I was allowed to be happy. The room laughed, but I meant every word. Later, alone on the balcony, Marcus slipped his arm around my waist. 22 years older, he murmured, echoing the old headlines. "And still the best decision I ever made." I kissed him slowly, no cameras this time, just the city lights and the future we had fought for. We never stopped working. The film earned awards, but more importantly, it opened doors for other queer stories with age gaps that didn't need justification. My parents visited for the Oscars. My father shook Marcus's hand and called him son for the first time. I stood on that stage, holding the statue, speech notes forgotten, and simply said thank you to the man who had taught me that love, when honest, could outlast any scandal. The journey had been messy, painful, and beautiful. I had lost sponsors, nearly lost my family, and almost lost myself. But I had gained a partner, a voice, and the courage to live unapologetically. In the end, the kiss that started it all wasn't the scandal. It was the beginning of everything real. In reflecting on this story, I see how fear of judgment can keep us smaller than we deserve to be. Alex's growth came not from the spotlight, but from choosing honesty over comfort. The lesson is simple yet stubborn. Love doesn't come with an expiration date or a societal stamp of approval. When you stop hiding, you stop shrinking. The world may roar at first, but it eventually quiets for those brave enough to stand in their truth. Don't wait for permission to be who you are. Permission was never required.